Hello all, Seriously's here, back with some more tips and tricks, and as promised, we are back today to talk about starships, specifically your end game or newer starships. Back several years ago in 2019, when I started the game, or was it 18? I don't know. Either way, there were only 5 types of ships. There were fighters, like you see behind me, except this is a unique fighter from Expedition 1, the Golden Vector. There were fighters, haulers, explorers, shuttles, and exotic starships were the 5 types of ship that were in the game, and they each had their own unique bonuses, and they still to this day do have differing stats from each other, and we'll go over those briefly. But since 2019, 3 more ship types have been added to the game. We have the living ship that got added to the game. Right. We have the solar ship that got added to the game. And we have the Sentinel ship that got added to the game. Looks like a Cylon ship. So each of these have significant differences and bonuses to the standard starships. They each have a unique bonus that we'll go over. But let's go over the bonuses to each ship in general. Let's go back to the fighter first. The fighter has the best damage bonus in the game. It also has it's tied for the best base maneuverability in the game with the Explorer, Exotic, and Solar ships. They all have the same potential base maneuverability. It also gets a bonus maneuverability stat, and it's the second best in the game at its bonus maneuverability stat. So this is a very maneuverable and the highest damage ship in the game. If we go to say, let's start with the hauler then. A hauler has the best shield stat in the game by a pretty significant margin. 35 points over the second best, 125 versus 90. So very good shields on a hauler, but it has the lowest base maneuverability, tied with the living ship. It also has the lowest damage. No, the second lowest damage. Explorers have the lowest damage. And it has a very, very poor maneuverability bonus. So it's one of the least maneuverable ships in the game. If we go to the Explorer, various looking explorers in the game, they have the best hyperdrive in the game by a pretty significant margin. 120 on that versus 95 is the second closest. They don't actually have that great stats in much other stuff. They have a pretty low maneuverability bonus and a very low shield bonus, and their damage bonus is actually 0. They have 0 bonus to damage stats, so they have the lowest damage bonus in the game. As we said, there was also exotics. Now, this specific exotic, as I've mentioned before in many other videos, comes from Expedition 3 cartographers, so it has unique technology and does not count, but this is generally what exotics look like. And as a general rule, they are the jack of all trades. They are second best at basically everything in the game. They're tied for fighters with base maneuverability for best. They have the second best shields in the game behind haulers, 90 versus 125. They have the second best hyperdrive in the game behind explorers, tied with living ships of 95 versus 120 for explorers. And they have the best maneuverability bonus in the game. So they're tied with fighters for base maneuverability bonus for best, but they get 50 versus 40 for their bonus to maneuverability. So they can have an even higher bonus to their maneuverability than fighters can. Their damage compares pretty favorably, actually, to the fighter. 90 versus 75 for the exotic. Not too bad, not too shabby. Yeah, and there's nothing else very fancy about the exotic. They're just a really good all-around ship. They're pretty rare, hard to find, I definitely recommend going and finding some coordinates to one instead of trying to find your own, because not only getting the color you want and the shape you want, but waiting for each of them to land in every system you visit, that's just going to take you the rest of your life. Go look up some coordinates and find the one you like and go get it. Alright, let's jump into the new ships. We'll start with the living ship. It was the first new one added. They look really unique. There was a new one added to the game with the currently running Titan Expedition, so you can get a unique looking living ship. It'll have all the bonuses we're about to talk about stat wise, I believe, and it'll look unique. Actually, I think it also has a bonus of hovering, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember. I haven't played around with the new ship. So the living ship, it's got a very, 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 very low maneuverability. It not only has the lowest maneuverability tied with haulers, it also has, again, tied with haulers, the lowest maneuverability bonus. So 250 versus 445 for all of the top end base maneuverabilities, and 15 versus 40 or 50 for fighters or exotics for maneuverability bonuses. It does, however, as mentioned before, have the second best hyperdrive in the range in the game, and the second best damage potential. No, I take that back. The third best damage potential. So exotics, livings, and solar ships are tied for third place in damage. So all around, it's a pretty good ship. The unique bonus that this has is that it runs on unique equipment. If we go over to the Starship and we want to charge this up, it says down at the bottom, charges with pugnium, mordite, or dihydrogen. The other charging things here charge with chromatic metal, processed meat, or living slime. You know, just really unique stuff to charge. Oxygen, mordite, condensed carbon. So it's got organic costs for its recharge. That's its unique bonus. Not the best bonus, in my opinion. In fact, I consider that much more of a detriment than a bonus, which is why mostly I don't fly the living ships. Alright, switching over to solar ships. I think we've touched on a couple other stats already. They have tied for best place in base maneuverability, tied for third place in damage. They do okay in shields. They're middle of the road for shields. 50, you know, not too great, not too bad. Hyperdrive, pretty low, 50. It's middle of the road as well. Maneuverability bonus is the same as a fighter, so it can be exactly as maneuverable as a fighter, and it has a very unique bonus that I think is probably one of the better bonuses in the game for unique starships. So you might actually consider the solar ship as an end game ship because of this. It has the Vesper sails, which is recharging of your, I believe, pulse engine, or does it just say launch there? Fuel efficiency and boost performance overall. Okay, and gives extra charging to the launch system. So your launch thrusters, especially if you include the auto launch recharger, I believe it's called. There we go. Launch auto charger. You basically never run out of launch fuel. You recharge it as you fly. And it's very, very efficient for your pulse drive engine for flying through space. Basically never run out of fuel for that either. So pretty big advantage in my opinion for a pretty moderate trade-off to stats compared to other ships. Now, in my opinion, the ship that everyone should have one of is the newest added ship, and that is the Sentinel Interceptor ship. If you want to go get an Interceptor, it is phenomenal. It has a very, very, very good hyperdrive range as a base usually. I would say, I don't know why this is the case, its hyperdrive bonus is very, very low. It's got a 10 compared to a 120 of an Explorer, but it always has an insanely high hyperdrive range. A C-class Sentinel ship will have 300 light years, whereas an Explorer will have 120. So I don't know what causes that, but if it's a bug, it's still worth it. It has a huge hyperdrive range. It has the highest base starting slots of any ship in the game. It has very good stats overall. Now, it has pretty low maneuverability, It has a 300 base maneuverability compared to a 250 of a hauler or a living ship, so you might think it's comparable, but instead of having a 15 for its maneuverability bonus, it has a 50. So it's more like a 350 versus a 265. Not too shabby. If it's 265 versus 500 on the high end, then a 360 is in the middle, right? The unique bonus that a Sentinel Interceptor has is that it can hover, it can stay perfectly still in atmosphere and look around without moving forward, which hardly any other ships in the game have, except for a couple expedition reward ships that were unique rewards and are not always available, like the Iron Vulture hovers, the Starborn Runner hovers, and I think there's one other ship, maybe the new one we were talking about, the Wraith, the unique living ship hovers. I can't remember if that one does or not. But yeah, that is a very, very good bonus. Not as great, I think, as the solar ship, but it's definitely something to consider. Damage-wise, it's got the second best stats in the game behind the fighter, so 80 versus 90. It's only 5 better than the exotic living or solar ships. But, second best is second best. And yeah, that covers basically all of the stuff in each class of ship. So we're going to switch over to the ship I use. And I would be using a Sentinel Interceptor on this save probably if this wasn't an expedition reward ship that had better technology for its hyperdrive and pulse engine and launch thrusters. So there's its hyperdrive unique. It's called frameshift catapult instead of hyperdrive engine. Instead of pulse engine, this is called a waveform engine. Instead of launch thrusters, it's called the advanced launch system. And it even has a unique piece of tech that I don't think does anything, called the pressurization capsule. It says it's something for your breathable atmosphere, but it doesn't seem to do anything. So it doesn't give adjacency bonuses, it just takes up an extra slot. Oh well. Alright, so let's go over my personal tier list for weapons to start. We did this with the multi-tool as well. I'm going to put the Infra-Knife up at the top of the list. It has very high accuracy, it fires extremely fast, and does very, very, very good damage. You can see here I'm only using 1 supercharged slot on the weapon itself, 3 X-Class modules, and the blueprint upgrade. And we have 51,000 DPS and 34,000 shields. So pretty high damage overall, and it's just really, really fast at melting enemy ships. My second place goes to, the Sentinel Interceptor default weapon. You can see I have an Infra-Knife installed on this Sentinel Interceptor, but the Sentinel Cannon is a Photon Cannon. If we go and install the Photon Cannon upgrade for nonlinear optics, I don't have all the stuff, but it does give an adjacency bonus. So this is a Photon Cannon, and it fires almost as fast as the Infra-Knife, but does Photon Cannon damage. It will give you lower numbers in its DPS listing here, but I find actually kills stuff faster than the Infra-Knife. So my recommendation is if you have an Interceptor, don't bother with the Infra-Knife, work on your Photon Cannon. Go ahead and get the X-Class upgrades. As far as I'm concerned, all of the upgrades for your ship should be X-Class upgrades instead of S. I don't think any of them have worse potential stats, but I don't use all the weapon types, so it's possible that 1 or 2 of the X-Class upgrades are not up to par of S. But in general, X-Class over S. And let's get back to the ship. I prefer putting my bonuses for supercharged slots into the pulse engine. Maneuverability, I find, is probably the most important stat on any starship you're going to fly if you're not trying to avoid all combat. If you're avoiding combat, maneuverability is not that bad of a stat because it gets you a higher base speed for boosting and pulsing around as well. So, pulse engine, super slots, That's where I generally like to put it. I put one, if I can afford it, onto a weapon to help me kill stuff faster. I don't usually worry about shields. I was saying earlier how haulers have the best shield bonuses, but even with the worst shield bonuses in the game, I've never run into any significant differences in how fast I take damage or how much I need to recharge my shields during combat. I find the biggest difference in how much damage you take is in how much damage you deal. The longer you're taking to dispose of your enemies, the more damage you'll take, and the more you'll need to use your shields, no matter how good they are. If it's a hauler, or if it's a, what was I saying was the bad shield one? A living ship? Yeah, fighters. Fighters have the worst shield bonuses in the game at 38, and I don't have any problem fighting in a fighter. Go figure. So yeah, that's where I like to put my bonuses. Hyperdrive range used to be much more important than it is these days because it used to get you the biggest ranges. If you had an Explorer, you could get massive hyperdrive ranges, but they gave a huge boost to freighters at one point in the game. I can't remember the name of the update, but freighters are by far the way to warp long distances in the modern era of No Man's Sky. So you don't really need to worry about getting the best bonuses for your hyperdrive range, but definitely do not settle for anything less than S-class upgrade modules and get 3 of them, because they always give 100% warp cell efficiency, which will reduce how much it costs to warp as much as possible. So you don't use fuel like crazy. You won't have to recharge after every warp. Maybe once every 5 or 6 warps you'll have to recharge. So S or X class for those. And you want to get the new Atlanta drive to get to purple stars. You do not need to have the cadmium drive, the emerald drive, and the indium drive if you have the Atlanta drive. All they do is give adjacency bonuses, which just squeaks an extra couple of light years out of your range. And as I said, not that important these days. Launch thrusters, very important. We were talking about that on the solar ship. They get automatic recharging by default, and you can speed that up with the auto charger right there. But I recommend getting X class. They have a high end of 25 to launch cost reduction. 25% times 3 plus the natural 20% of this blueprint is the best you can get in the game. You'll be down to 1 or 2% fuel per launch. You can just launch, take off, launch, take off, launch, take off 100 times in a row, and you won't run out of fuel if you have a launch recharger. It's pretty crazy. So definitely get X class for those. Then there's the other technology you can get on your ships. There's aesthetic technology. You can get figurines and Starship trails, and they actually can give adjacency bonuses that increase your maneuverability. So you might want to look into that. You want the Polo figurine. And then you want to put stuff like your Starship trail beside it. And if we do that, watch my maneuverability on the side should increase. It's pretty significantly, if you notice that, from 332 to 390. And then we could do something else, like put a secondary figurine. And from 390, went up to 349. So the Polo figurine gives them maneuverability bonuses, and for some reason it works with adjacency on some other trails and some other figurines. So there's those to think about. And the other technology you're definitely going to want in pretty much every starship is a teleport receiver. It does not have the range of the one in your freighter, the matter beam. This works in any star system. If you want to get stuff from this part of your freighter, or send stuff to this part of your freighter, you don't even have to be in the same star system as your freighter with this. Your starship, it only increases your range to about 500 units or less. It might even be only 300 units across, so 150 units from your ship. But that sure beats the needing to be directly beside your ship. You want this in all your ships, basically. I also like to put a conflict scanner and economy scanner. It lets you search around in the galaxy map from your starship, even though I mostly do that on my freighter these days. Very helpful. And finally, I think even more helpful than either of those is the cargo scan deflector, which will not only protect you from pirates, but also from Sentinel space cops who are searching you when you're transporting illicit goods. You just have to tap this a couple of times. We don't really have time to go out and test it because I'd have to go get assaulted by pirates or space cops, and we just don't have time for that. But you just hit the hot menu a few times. It'll probably pop up on your utilities right away if you're being scanned by pirates or Sentinels. So you just automatically will pop up on this. You'll click it once, it'll automatically pop up as the cargo scan deflector, and you click it again. And if it fails, just repeat that process really, really quick. It works every time if you do it 3 times in a row. I don't think I've ever had it fail after clicking it rapidly 3 times in a row. So super helpful for avoiding fights, especially if you haven't gotten all of your stuff X-Class upgraded and you don't feel confident in a fight and you just want to run from every fight. Cargo scan deflector. One of the best pieces of tech that they added to the ships. And that's pretty much what I put on all my ships, regardless of what they are. And I generally go for Interceptors. I find they have the best hyperdrive range, slots, and damage and shields. Everything is just middle of the road, plus they hover. They look cool and you can get different variety in them. That's my recommendation for your end game ship. Unless you can get something cool and unique, like a unique reward from one of the expeditions. Some of those are very, very, very cool as well. I really like this one here, Boundary Herald. I got Marvin the Martian starship. I really like the Starborn Runner. Definitely do your expeditions. You can get some really cool endgame starships. Oh, hey, we completed a mission by equipping this ship. But yeah, that's going to be it for today. Until next time, have a good time.